out on the plane of selfishness. In these days, selfishness has become so important that we permit it to influence and undermine our integrities. The individual feeling that he wants to do something, feeling that he wants freedom, walks out on a home. The individual feeling they want to have greater estate, walk out on their family also. Everywhere the individual is thinking of himself only, what he wants to do, what he wants to be, and the magnificence of a career of his own choosing. If we watch the papers and watch the records carefully, we will see that nature itself is already stepping in to prove that this attitude is wrong. We've used it for years, and the world is in the worst conditions it's been in recorded history. The great freedoms we talk about have made us slaves to freedom. The great dominations of each other that we've talked about has produced a world of slaves. And most of all, we are the slaves of our own attitudes. So on the emotional level, it is necessary for the individual to control his own life in a friendly, loving manner, to try to do the best job he can under the circumstances, never to get the most he can for doing the least he can. The moment this happens, a strange spiritual barrier is raised which we don't recognize. We don't know about it. But it has put a block on our thinking and our understanding. And while it's there, we can't go any further. It is for this reason that in the ancient wisdom teachings, the corridors and byways of the underworld, where we are all struggling, were also beset with evil spirits and monsters and dragons and all kinds of horrible and frightful things. These frightful things are wars and pestilences and disasters and plagues, all these things, and the little private antagonisms of people that go from one generation to another, passing on a hatred the cause of which is forgotten. All this type of thing is part of the emotional life, and the emotional life should be simplified into kindness. In the Buddhist philosophy, the Lord Maitreya is the next world teacher. The word Maitreya means, or when translated, kindness. Therefore, kindness is the next great avatar that must come to redeem the world. And wherever kindness ends, it must begin with us. Kindness is something that must so dominate that all negative attitudes and negative feelings are simply given up as useless. And the person finds that in kindness and forgiveness, that he will have a great sense of warmth, of integrities, of kindness, of fineness within his own nature. Otherwise, he will continue to live under the shadows of old memories, old bitterness, and this and that. Also in the emotional realm is the problem of emotionalization of our own conduct. We look back upon a life that we have lived for many years. We realize that in that life we have caused trouble and we have been troubled. We have had a difficult problem raising a family. We have had divorce or damage to our home and domestic relationships. We were left orphan or put out to adoption. All these things happened. Or perhaps we were spoiled, given everything we wanted, and brought up to believe that we live for the principle of fulfilling any appetite that we feel. This again is a great detriment. But in all problems, we have to look back upon the emotional background of ourselves and remember how we felt and why we felt, and say to ourselves very simply, are these old emotions still hurting us? That is really one of the bases of psychoanalysis and psychotherapy. Most people who are neurotic or frustrated are in trouble largely because of their own memories. Memories that hurt, memories that seemed unfair, memories that made them hate their parents or their grandparents or their own children, memories that separate people because of dismal notions and reverberations out of the past. This type of memory problem is very difficult to work with, but it has to be worked with. The only way you can get over a bad memory is to find out why it was necessary. If the individual could take the memories that he has and transmute them in terms of experience, he would find that everything that happened to him was tremendously important, and he might be grateful indeed for circumstances that he now regards as terrifying or terrible. Each thing that happens to him was an opportunity to grow. Each misfortune is an opportunity to rise to a higher level of personal integrity. Each heartache is the possibility of transforming this attitude or this emotion into a great and deep recognition of universal unity of life. Each person can take his own memories, and by understanding them correctly, he can use them to grow with rather than to allow to hurt him. Nearly always a memory that hurts is a memory of an action that we have never learned to understand, never learned to affect, and never learned to get along with. So we have these problems on the emotional plane of life, and we must come out of it with a kindly attitude, a willingness to bless regardless, and a perfect willingness to see others succeed more than we do, advance better than we are, and take life as a series of disciplines in which integrities do work out. We find time after time that the individual who has had bad times and has lived through them successfully has become fortunate in all respects. It is a case of living through it and growing with it, and not allowing oneself to turn into a dope addict or an alcoholic because of a miserable childhood. All of this is an emotional frustration. It's there, and maybe the individual in any certain case may not be able to handle it in this embodiment. But if he can handle it and doesn't do anything about it, he has no right to say that he is searching for a higher level of understanding and insight. Or if he says he is trying to, he should take into consideration that he will never make it until he changes himself. Now, beyond above this, we have the next level, which in Jnana Yoga represents, in a sense, wisdom, the mind. Now, the mind is probably the most important instrument that we have, but it has much the quality of an atomic bomb by which it was brought into existence. The mind is an attitude